Can you hear me? I can hardly hear myself. Okay. To introduce myself, uh, I'm Joel Chazen. I served as rabbi for 22 years at a very fine nursing home, still going well, Montefiore, a kind of companion or sister institution to Menorah Park. It's very nice to welcome you and reconnect with many. But of course, this is a. Can you hear me all right? I don't know why. Okay. It's an occasion of sadness, of reflection, but also to recognize the deep blessing in Helen's life. And I want to just share a word to Len and Carla, to Gail and Ryan, and to Deborah and Brian. You are so lucky to have had a mother like Helen. She was like a mother bird nurturing her young, her offspring in the family nest, nurturing you lovingly and as she felt best. But when it became time for you to fly, she released you to the winds and you were free. Without meddling, without scolding, without, the inevitable words of do this or do that or be careful about this. And you're very fortunate. She was an ideal mother. And again, to her entire family and many friends, she simply was a blessing. I'll begin with a couple of phrases from our Jewish tradition. You can hear me. I wish the microphone was louder, but sorry. From the Psalms, from the Song of Songs. Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is as strong as death, and passion as unquenchable. The flames of love are flames of fire. They are a flame from God. And now traditional words about the woman of valor. A good wife, a good woman. Where can she be found? Her value is far above rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her. He lacks nothing. And of course, we remember Wally, who passed away, unfortunately, 16 years ago. She renders her husband good all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy and extends her hand to those in need. She is clothed in strength and honor and cheerfully faces whatever may come. On her mouth are words of wisdom, and on her tongue are words of loving kindness. She tends to the affairs of her household, is never idle. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Sorry, I just have to find the right. Helen, as many of you know, raised three adoring children: Len, Gail, Deborah, who went on themselves to bring to Helen 7 grandchildren, and the grandchildren in turn 7 great grandchildren. So family and the multitude of family is a great part of your lives. And actually, just as an aside, I had a chance to speak to Aaron, one of Deborah's sons, right, in Portland. Did I get it right? Aaron and Emily. And the grandkids recounted how every summer, for something like 10 days or 2 weeks, the family from Oregon piled into a car, or maybe 2 cars, came to Chicago, picked up Gail's family, and they had the time of their lives sleeping in the great living room of Helen and Wally. Helen was the middle child of 5 children born to parents Louis and Edith Vendeland. Now, most of us, our ancestors came from Russia, Poland, Romania, wherever, but there may have been a Dutch, I don't know, a Dutch connection for the name Vendeland. Again, she was the middle child. Sadly, Helen and all her siblings have passed on. Her 4 siblings, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, Stanford or Buddy, Polly, and younger siblings, Esther and Jack. They're all gone. And there might be several of you who are the children, the cousins and nieces and nephews to Helen. And I'm sure your respective parents leave many beautiful blessings. Helen graduated John Hay High School way back in 1944. She quickly found work. It was still wartime, right? As a multi-skilled typist, secretary, stenographer. She was smart and capable. And that image of capability, and as you've said, Deborah, practicality, was with her entire life. She was a doer. She had many enjoyments. She loved life. So she worked for a time for the Army Air Corps. Then, after the war, or after her marriage to Wally, she worked at secretary to Temple Beth Am, now no longer quite in existence. It's been absorbed. And after that, the Workmen's Circle. Dynamic lady who also, like that older generation, in times of scarcity, worked hard alongside of Wally to keep the household together financially, economically, as well as emotionally. So anyway, so she graduates high school in 1944. Her husband-to-be is still in the Army. They meet on a blind date after the war, and she and Wally married December 22nd, 1946. A very beautiful occasion in the family's history, and your parents' marriage lasted just short of 47 years. Am I about right? Again, as I mentioned, she loved life. She loved people. You can hear me all right? Her social insights were instinctive. You know, we all talk about a social intelligence, but some are truly gifted. Helen was gifted. She perceived people accurately, but you wouldn't call her shrewd. I'm not going to do that. She was endearing in her perceptions, often saying to people, honey, or sweetie pie, other words of endearment. And that outflowing of love, I would call it, an outflowing of love, of concern, really won her friends throughout her life. The aides that attended to her in her dying days were crazy about her. Lenny, you emphasize your mom's social intelligence. You said it was gut-oriented, instinctive, not something, it may have been something she built on, but it came from within. Again, her love of life expanded, a love now. She was a fierce competitor. The kids, the grandkids have said so. She loved cards. Did I say bridge? A champion at bridge for 40 years and maybe more than 40 years. With one circle of friends after another. She was unbeatable at Rummy Cube and Scrabble, and she passed on these memories and her love of these enjoyments to each of her children. Deborah, as I said, you stressed her practicality and all that she taught you and her way of getting things done. And again, being the glue that held the family together. And Gail, you brought back very endearing memories of how you would love to tell stories about the daily happenings of your little ones, of your children. And Helen listened to every word. She really had time for her kids and had so many qualities that certainly I wish I had. Again, her love of people and life was unquenchable. Her children were amazed. Their mother was so modest that in her 60s, their mother, in her quiet ways, took up oil painting and was an excellent artist. And I'm hoping that many of these paintings are being saved and preserved in the family. She loved bowling and golf. This is a woman who was outgoing and wanted to extend her years. She lived to 93. But it's fair to say that almost every day until the last bit of decline. Every day was a source of enjoyment, a way of expressing herself. Painting, bowling, golfing, volunteering, all of these enriched her life and, by extension, enriched your lives as well. She ultimately passed away. She ultimately passed away at Menorah Park, but also had 3 very wonderful years at Stone Gardens. Her deepest legacy, announced and repeated by each of the children, was family. Family love, family connections, family memories. She loved to travel with Wally as they saved money in their later years. But wait a minute, they went to London and visited Israel, but most important, her trips were to see family. And she never wanted to go on a trip far away unless it was in some way devoted to family. Again, as the children have shared, she was the glue holding the family together. There were tough times, occasions when her father and her husband, Wally, faced anti-Semitism. We're seeing some of it now, but most of us have grown up in America, I did certainly, of blessing and comfort and just enjoying other people. No hint of anti-Semitism for many of us. But she was, Len, as you've stressed, the binding material, cement maybe, that held. She was the emotional center of her family. Is that fair to say? To you, her children and grandchildren, and the little ones, the just in infant stages or younger stages, the great-grandchildren, all of you are blessed. And all of you who knew Helen well, or related, as I had said, as nieces and nephews or cousins to the younger generation, you're all blessed. We were fortunate that Helen Rose, her middle name was Rose Friedson, walked this earth, and she made the earth and made the world a better place. It's a large family. I'll share, hopefully accurately, each of the surviving family. She leaves loving son, the eldest, Len or Leonard, his dear companion, Carla. They reside in Cleveland Heights, but also Leonard's faithful son and handsome son, Joshua. Joshua, raise your hand. We see where you are. Okay. And Joshua is currently a student in San Diego. She leaves the middle child, older daughter, Gail, married to Ryan, who reside in Chicago. Her daughter, Eva, married to Peter, and their children, grandchildren to Gail, and great-grandchildren to Helen, Jack and Isla. Again, continuing with Gail's children, all daughters, Claire, known as Digi, affectionately known as Digi, married to Albert, and their baby, Kaya. And then further daughters to Gail and Ryan, Carolyn, and Anna. I got everybody in those branches. Are any of the daughters, Claire or Eva, here? Some of them? Okay, nice, very nice. And Carolyn and Anna, possibly? Okay. And then the youngest, Deborah, married to Brian, residing in Portland, Oregon. Apparently they get the same rain we do. And your daughter, Emily, married to Jason Youngers, and their grandchildren, Gail's grandchildren, Deborah's grandchildren, Hazel and Fritz. And then Deborah and Brian's son, Aaron, whom I had the pleasure to meet, married to Ruth, and their children in turn, Linus and Claire. And I'm blessed to have been selected by yourselves to share, to lead this ceremony, and to share in the wonderful love that still today binds the family closely. Would there be any member of the family or maybe a dear friend who'd like to share just a few words, just to add a word to what I've shared, or possibly later? In that case, I'll mention that as a group, we next voyage to Mount Olive Cemetery, and Helen will be buried right next to Wally in the front of the cemetery as we come in. I think it's called Section 51. And following the burial, it'll be approaching Shabbat, and gets dark early in these winter months. And the family will share with you the exact times of Shiva Saturday night and a good part of Sunday. Would you kindly rise? God full of mercy, El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malos Kedoshim Utahorim, Gezora Ki Amazhirim Et Nishmas, Chana Rivka, Helen Rose, Bat Leib, the Chava, the daughter of Louis and Edith, Shalcha Leolama, Began Heden Temenuchasa, Anaval Harachamim, Hastire Beseda Kanafecha Leolamim, V'titzro Besrachayim, Es Nishmasa, Adonai, Adonai, Hunach Lasa, V'sanuach B'shalom al Mishkava, V'nomar, Amen. I'll translate. And dear God, full of mercy, grant perfect peace and rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the loving soul of Helen Rose Friedson. She's gone to her eternal home. And Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May she rest forever in God's embrace. And the Lord is now her portion. And may her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. And may she rest in peace. Amen. I'll ask any who have been selected as those to carry the coffin, the pallbearers, to please come forward, and the rest of us will put on our coats and prepare to exit.